Welcome to episode 272 of In Touch with iOS, the show that talks about iPhone, iPad, Apple Watch, Apple TV, and related technologies. I'm your host, Dave Ginsburg, and I have a couple guests this week. Jill McKinley's back on the show. How are you doing, Jill? Welcome back.
Thank you. I'm doing great. It's great to be here.
Yeah, really great to have you. And unfortunately, Jeff Gamet couldn't make it this week, but so awesome to have Chuck Joyner fill in for him. I really appreciate it. How you doing, Chuck?
Hey, I'm doing good, Dave. Thank you for having me. It's just emergency guest, break the glass.
Yes, it was awesome that you're going to be here because we got a lot to talk about. My gosh, there's just a lot of stuff in the Apple world that's been going on. Really good. We're going to hit some of the news stories, but we're going to talk about iOS 17. It's been out for a couple days this week as we record. I'll mention a little bit about the iPhone. That's we're on iPhone and Apple Watch Eve, and there's all kinds of tips here we're going to talk about with iOS 17 here. So let's dive right into it. My first story is I wanted to mention this, that I'm excited about this, that the folks from Imazing, we've always been talking about Imazing, that great application that allows you to do a nice backup of your iPhone and your iPad in a remote external location, as well as being able to restore things much easier and quicker than you can, and have a lot more granular control than you can with an Apple backup. They are coming out with beta version 3. They just announced it this week, and everybody take a test drive on it. And I started playing around with it and took a little bit about it, and it does have quite a updated interface, which is cool. New home screens and showing some of the upcoming features. Now, by all means, if you use this as your daily backup regiment, I would probably install this separately. You could try it out. Like we always say, don't dive into beta unless some of us here do. To take a look at this. Chuck, do you use Imazing at all? You've been backing up your devices?
Oh yeah, I definitely use Imazing. And I saw the notification for the new version, and frankly, it was just a crazy day, and I didn't get to do anything about it. But Imazing is one of those tools that I think has achieved almost requirement status at this point.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely right. Don't you think, Ben?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not someone who uses it as much as I should, but this is basically the missing piece of software for your iDevices. It allows you to do all the things that you want to be able to do, but Apple just doesn't let you.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's incredible how much granular control you have of your device and being able to extract things that you wouldn't normally be able to in a standard iCloud backup or any other backup for that matter. Jill, do you use Imazing? Have you been using it before?
I contemplated it before, and I wasn't quite sure what it did compared to the regular backups you had with iPhone and iPad. And then I think a couple of weeks ago, I heard Brittany explain some use cases for it, particularly if you're going to a country and you didn't want everything on your phone or something. I thought those were great, and I plan on investigating it after this.
Yeah, you should. And in fact, this is a great time for it to come out in beta. But again, it's not something you want to do as a primary way. You stick with their current version. I believe is 2.18. I believe it is. But you'll see the latest version in the version 2. They're going to give a great discount. I think it's about 50% off of its regular price for those who jump on it sooner. And other good reason is that many of us getting new iPhones this coming week isn't a bad idea to run your backups. I normally run my iCloud backup and all other backups, but I'm definitely going to run my Imazing backup as well. It comes in handy a number of times when you come back and say something's missing. Like maybe especially messages is kind of a notorious thing of not coming back when you restore it. Sometimes, not all the time, but so check it out. Links in the show notes here. And a couple of things here I want to talk about in the news here. Apple is now encrypting titles of voice memos stored in iCloud on iOS 17 and macOS Sonoma for added privacy. So starting with all those OSs, all the latest ones, the iOS 17 and iPadOS 17 is out, and macOS Sonoma will be out next week as we record this. And what they've done is that as a result of this change, Apple's saying that the titles of existing voice memos might only show the date and the time of the recording on devices that are running older versions. And there is a support document and a link in this article and saying that they're saying that because of the additional encryption, when you update one of your iOS devices to the new versions, your devices that haven't yet updated with older versions of voice memos may display just the date and time, so you won't know what it is. So make sure you update when you're ready to do this. But I welcome this. This is a good thing because now it's encrypted. You don't have anybody were to get a hold of this, you won't know what it is. They have no idea. What do you think on this, Jill?
Oh, I think it's great. I think as soon as we think of everything to encrypt, someone will steal something else, and then some movie star will find out something that we didn't want to. Mine are all made up of you parked on 3D, you need to buy apples. So I don't mind so much, but I can see this problem for some people.
Yeah, that's great. How about you, Chuck? This I think is a good thing they're doing.
It is a good thing because it seems like all we do is open our web browsers or our RSS feeds. There's always somebody that's hacked something. And I'm kind of like Joe. I'm not sure that anything I have is worthy of being hacked. But at the same time, just the idea that somebody might be able to is a little distressing because it ends up causing you to pause and think, should I send that? Should I send that message to Ben or to Jill or to you that, could be misinterpreted by someone somehow. And that's quickly what it's turning into is, it's not what reality is. It's what reality is sold to us as. So I think it's a sign of the times, and it shouldn't be a surprise to anyone that Apple's trying to be one of the leaders in the encrypted communications. I know they're going to draw fire for it, but that's just the way it is.
How about you, Ben?
Yeah, this is great for privacy. You can actually tell a lot about what's in there by the title, even if it's encrypted.
You can tell the title, did you say?
If the rest of it's encrypted, but the title isn't, you can tell a lot about the contents of that memo.
Okay. So just be aware of this. It's keeping you secure. Next story here is, again, there's so many OS updates this week. I have this mentioned early this afternoon as we're recording this. We must have got inundated at least 10 emails from Apple Security, which I subscribe to, and many of us techie people do. That every OS was updated with the update, which we'll talk about here in just a minute. But tvOS. Surprisingly, you're going to have something to talk about with that because there has been quite a bit of changes with this. But I find this to be a great new feature that Apple has now added. The Apple TV can now be restored with an iPhone starting with iOS 17. So starting with iOS 17 and tvOS 17 software updates released this past week, any Apple TV HD or 4K model experiencing problems can be restored with a nearby iPhone. There's a new support document that talks about it. If a black screen or with an iPhone appears on the TV, the users can unlock their iPhone, hold it close to the Apple TV, then follow the on-screen recovery steps on the iPhone. When the recovery process is completed, the Apple TV will reboot. On the HD version, on the Apple TV HD version, there is a USB-C port that allows the device to be restored with a Mac over the wired connection. However, there is no USB-C port on any of the new 4K models, so it's advising customers to contact Apple support to restore those models. With a new iPhone-based restore method, that's no longer necessary. So hallelujah to this, because many of the time I support Apple TVs in with work here, and I've had times where it's bricked and you can't get it restored because it's being managed by an MDM. Then what do you do? Well, other than having an Ethernet connection, and many times you don't want to spend the money on an Ethernet version of that would be the 4K 128. You don't have that opportunity. So this is a welcome thing being able to do. What do you think, Ben?
This is making me do the happy dance.
Mm-hmm.
With the exception. Look, I have multiple Apple TVs in literally every TV OS generation, from the OG HD all the way up to the brand new 128 gigabytes third gen 4K. Quite frankly, every time it goes to update, there's just a little bit of pit in my stomach for a few minutes, because if it does not work, I will be driving to Madison. Yeah, now
to your nearest Apple store, right?
Yeah. Yes, 95 miles away.
You can just send
Ouch.
it to me and I'll bring it in.
She's nearby.
I'm nearby.
You have Apple TVs, Joe? Do you use them?
That's my last holdout. I have bought everything Apple now except for Apple TV, but I think this fall I'm going to, because the A things have been just disappointing me lately. And this, again, is the last thing, and I haven't been disappointed by Apple yet. So getting away from Fire Sticks would be great.
I have all the, because I'm crazy. I have Roku. I have a Google TV. I mean, I want to try them all out, and luckily those devices are inexpensive. I didn't go with the high end models, but every time I go back, it's like, why am I even bothering with this? Apple TV is so much better. It really is, the interface. What do you think, Chuck?
I'm taking a little bit different slant on this. First of all, it's good. It's great. I can't say that I've had that many issues with my Apple TVs that needed something like this. But it feels like this is just one more little nicety that comes from being an Apple user and being part of the Apple ecosystem. And so I love it. I don't know why it wasn't done before. Maybe they just never got around to it. But at the end of the day, same thing. It's just, it gives you an option. And I'm sure glad we can save Ben a 95-mile drive.
Yeah.
Yes.
Honestly, it should have been done the second they took away the USB-C port.
Yeah, I agree.
And I think we all support people, who don't know technology maybe as well as we do, and to just give them an option where they can feel like they can control their devices. That's worth everything.
Yeah. Yep, absolutely. Next story here. Apple has updated Pages, Keynote, and Numbers for both iOS and iPadOS 17, as well as macOS Sonoma. And Ventura too. Apple today has updated their suite of iWork apps. Actually, this was today as we record this. It just got released. It's adding new features to those applications in the iWork world. On the iPhone and the iPad, the 3 iWork apps are now going to support 3D objects in the USD-Z file format. Apple says these can be added to the documents to bring new dimensions to your work. In Keynote specifically, embedded animations within the USD-Z files can be played, or a magic move can be used to animate 3D objects across there. It does support stickers and updated emoji interface and many other features. Even gives you options to be able to collaborate on documents over FaceTime. That's kind of cool, being able to do that, and suggest documents when using Spotlight. So the link in your show notes has all the links to the updates, and you go right in the App Store and be able to get your updates. I just did them a little while ago. Chuck, what do you think? I mean, I think the suite just continues to evolve and get better.
Yeah, and I don't want to come across as negative here, not against Apple, but if you work with Keynote, it's fun to work with Keynote. If you work with PowerPoint, you want to pull your fingernails out. It is just such a god awful mess. And unfortunately, as all of these suites try to add new features and do different things, I feel like Apple definitely has the edge on just integrating them into the interface instead of slapping up yet another menu bar, another toolbar, another pull down menu. And so, I'm excited to play with some of the 3D things inside of Keynote, because I can see, I know what an incredible difference Magic Move made. And it feels like this is going to be one more thing that, if you combine the 3D formats with all the other existing Keynote features, it's just going to get more fun.
Yeah. How about you, Jill? Do you use the iWork suite?
I am working my way towards moving entirely off of Office and into the iWork suite. And I consider myself an expert on all of the Office suite items. But there are some things that are so unintuitive. Like, I spent hours at work putting bullet points in a document, and then I'd bullet point the next section and it would give me different bullet points. How about you give me the ones I just picked? What about that? And I'm hoping I find a little bit more intuitiveness as I get more and more used to the Apple suite of products.
Yeah. Thoughts on this, Ben?
I've used iWork from the second Apple released it to replace Apple Works.
Oh
I love it.
Apple Works.
This might be a little bit more functionality that, I was a ClarisWorks user, but I mean, it's more functionality that I will use, but somebody will. And this will make it a lot easier to use that functionality than the corporate mandated disaster that is MS Works or MS Office, excuse me.
Yeah. Yep. So good stuff. Go out, update them. It's it'll make some improvements here. So
hey Dave,
go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
Do you mind if I just throw something in?
Please do.
I think that folks, if you aren't using Keynote and you don't need to do presentations, still get familiar with Keynote, because Keynote, you can do some amazing graphics work just in one panel and then export that out. And if you have the need for like a small animation or something, you can do that and export that out as a movie. And so often I think we get hung up on this idea that this is like PowerPoint and, it's used for corporate presentations. And it really, if you just kind of turn the knob just a little bit and in your thinking, you can find so many ways to use it that are so, so useful. So yes, that's a little bit of an advertisement for Keynote, but I do think it's an opportunity for use that a lot of people miss.
Agreed. Absolutely agreed. Take advantage of it. Take a look at it. It's free. I mean, my gosh, Apple gives it away to every Mac user. Yeah. So you can't complain about that one bit. A couple updates on report on Apple Watch. The watchOS 10.0.1 was released today as we record this. It was a minor update. That when 10 first came out, you kind of have to expect that the 0.1 versions are going to be out. There really wasn't any notification of what it really fixes, but other than it's just some minor bugs. It's mostly security updates, right? They also released 9.6.3 for those who have not updated to 10 watchOS 10. So yeah, pretty much all those announcements from today were security updates, which we'll hit here in just a minute. So important to get that updated. We'll talk about iOS just a minute here. The other thing was interesting is this article here. It's watchOS 10.1, which hasn't even been in beta yet or even released. MKBHD or Marcus Brownlee, of course, surprise, already has the latest Apple Watch. It was the Series 9, and he was demonstrating the Ultra 2. And the double tap gesture that Apple made such a big deal about is not ready just yet. So when I get my Apple Watch Series 9 tomorrow, I am not going to be able to do the double tap because it's not going to be released until 10.1. The first beta will probably come out next week, and Apple announced that software update will be probably next month. So people are going to go a whole month of being able to, of all the exciting things people got from that, I think. But I did watch the video, and they even gave him an advanced copy of 10.1 so he could actually talk about it and demonstrate it on his video. So what a surprise there. Mm-hmm. So it's, and another thing too is the fact that, the Apple Watch really there isn't a huge incremental jump between the 9 and then some of the older ones. I have a Series 7, so I decided, it's two versions. I don't mind doing it, but he even said that I wouldn't go with anything unless you have something as old as the Series 3. So it's really, buyer beware of what you want. I don't generally have been updating Apple Watches every year like I do iPhones. But it's kind of a sad thing that they didn't release this just yet. What are your thoughts on this, Chuck?
A little surprised because I'm now using the double tap on my 7 because through accessibility. Right? And I've made no secret about this, that I missed this capability completely. When they started talking about double tap and then people said it was available, I tried it, and I'm running watchOS 7 now with the latest version of watchOS, and it works probably, I think, 95 to 98% of the time. Once in a while, for whatever reason, it won't do it. And I've been shocked at how much I've used it and how convenient it is. And so, I'm a little surprised that if this is supposed to be a tentpole feature of the new watch and therefore the new watchOS, that it's not there. But at the end of the day, man, I tell you, I give somebody a lot of credit because and yes, we've all talked about how it may be part of Vision's interface, but this is going to get us used to it. And frankly, I think it's going to get us addicted to it.
It could. He did demonstrate the comparison because he was talking about, Apple, why are you not allowing this to be the actual double tap that they're going to offer be available on older models? I mean, I understand if you're talking about a Series 3 or Series 4, of course not. But Series 8 is not that old. And Apple doesn't give a good reason other than the fact that, well, it's got to be a S9 SIP chip for it to work. He did demonstrate the accessibility settings on the older watch under OS Mac watchOS 9, and it does work most of the time. But there is some times where it was giving them, giving some issues. I mean, because you can clench your fist. A lot of other accessibility for, it's designed for people who have mobility issues in their hands and want to be able to access it. So it is this definitely interesting. You have any thoughts on this, Ben?
For one, not surprised Marquez got hooked up. The dude does such a great job, and he has connections that nobody else does.
18 million followers too.
Yeah, that helps. Probably why he got to drive a Amazon van in his newest video today. But I'm kind of glad they're taking time to make sure they got it right.
Yeah, I'm in that sense. I agree with you.
Yeah, and the other thing, there are things that they might have to get worked out on this. Like, what if you're like me and tend to be a little bit fidgety? You don't. Yeah. I mean, the difference between the accessibility double tap and this double tap. There might be a little bit less room for error. I mean, we haven't used it in the wild, so I mean, it's all speculation at this point.
Right.
But, I mean, we'll find out with 17.1 with the few of us who are upgrading.
Yeah, agreed on iOS. Jill, do you have an Apple Watch? I wasn't sure if you did or not.
I have an Apple Watch. Okay. I'm probably going to wait till 10 to get the next Apple Watch. So I'm going to skip 9. But my first thought was we went from this to that. So, shucks. But I agree. I am fidgety. I tried the accessibility and I just kept doing inadvertent things and I turned it off because I do all sorts of things. But I think it's a great feature. And again, I'm glad Apple's making sure that it's right.
Yeah, no, there's no question because a lot others out there would release it really quick here. So, let's go ahead and move on. We're going to move on to the topics this week. First off, beta. There is no beta because we're in iOS 17 just got released. So, like Ben mentioned, we can anticipate. Yeah, Chuck does not do beta at all, and he's glad that it's gone for just a brief moment because we know 17.1 is going to get released probably next week as we record here. So, but there is some very important updates. If you have already updated to iOS 17.0.1 is out, and this has some pretty serious security updates that need to be run. It is very important to run this right now. If you are running iOS 17. In fact, iOS 16.7 was dropped as well. So you want to make sure if you're still running 16 to run that update as well, because there's some pretty serious vulnerabilities that these are fixing. Interesting fact that they for the iPhone 15, which a couple of us here are going to be getting tomorrow, is going to be with 17.0.2 because it's addressing some even more vulnerabilities that was specifically related to the iPhone 15. So you got any thoughts on that, Ben?
Yeah. If there's a security update, download it immediately.
Yep. Agreed. Chuck, did you update the iOS 17 yet, or are you still holding off?
No. I went to 17, and the transition was very, very smooth. And then they bring 17.0.1 today. So I haven't done that, but yeah, with that kind of update, it seems like it has to be security related. So I will be doing that after the show.
Quick. They did do it on macOS as well. Mac Ventura's 13.6 dropped today. I just did those updates earlier today. Did them for work for my work machines as well. As well as Sonoma, they released the second candidate for the release candidate that includes those security fixes. So yeah, so some pretty serious stuff. A lot of updates. Even the older macOS like Monterey and Big Sur and those releases had some updates as well. Because so Apple took this very seriously and made sure that we get these patched iPadOS as well. So go out there, update it. Very important to do that. So I wanted to hit a little bit about what all the new features and everything that's come out in iOS 17. Sounds like, Chuck, you've only had it in your hands for maybe a day or two. So what's kind of been your first impressions of iOS 17 since you upgraded?
Stable. A couple interesting things. One interesting thing that happened to me was that when it walks you through and asks you to pick a photo for yourself or whatever. So I picked a photo for myself, and suddenly it updated all my photos across all my other devices too.
I noticed that too.
Yeah, it's like, well, that's interesting. And not a big thing, just sort of unexpected. And I'm still learning the proper titles of some of the features, but the what are they called? Visual voicemail, or the voice thing where I've had that. It pops up and says, "Do you want to use this?" And it's like, "Oh yeah," and so didn't answer a call today, and it said someone's leaving you a message, so I was able to just watch as they were speaking.
Isn't that cool?
Yeah, it didn't mean I answered the phone because it was somebody I didn't want to talk to. But the point is that, it works, and it's one of those nice new little features. I'm trying to think. I don't want to steal the thunder. I saw what's coming up in in your notes, so that's a whole other thing we can talk about. But yeah, overall, my experience has been very, very positive. And I was one of the, not skeptics. I'm just one of the very cautious people who wants to wait a day or two, and there were no reports of any problems, and so I did it, and not looking back.
Well, you, Jill, and Ben, you both have been on beta since iOS 17 came out, so this is all nothing new to you guys. That you have anything to add before we're gonna dig in a little bit to some of the features that are out there, as well as some tips. But Jill, what do you think first? Is how did you think it went for this beta cycle?
I thought it went really well. I joined in somewhere around public beta 5, I think it was. So it was later in the process. Okay. But it's been great. I haven't run into any problems, and I use this phone and my iPads for lots of things. And I know it's considered to be a smaller update, but I like the things in there. Particularly, I'm a widget fan, so interactive widgets.
Yeah.
And now I'm making stickers every 3 seconds, so it's been great for me.
Jeff Gamet, he'd already did it for his cat and has been sharing his stickers around some texts already with us. So it's really been kind of cool to be able to do that. And even the stickers they come with, the stock stickers, are kind of fun to play with. And Sen, I agree with you on that. Ben, again, you as well have been running it since the beginning. What's been standing out for you so far?
Well, I mean, first off, it has been extremely stable since the first. Even the first developer builds. The only thing that never really worked for me at the beginning was the new voicemail system, which is now rock solid. But the one thing I really never got to play with in beta, because the apps weren't available, were those new interactive widgets. And they really changed the way I interact with the system. Yep. Then you have kind of the other little things like being able to tag your pets.
Yep.
And then you have some of the other very interesting things, especially when you upgrade to the brand new iPhones, like updated Metal FX.
Mm-hmm.
It's honestly, it's getting to the point where we're not as much in different Apple OSs as we're just kind of different flavors, interfaces within the Apple ecosystem. Ecosystem. I can't talk today.
Exactly. Yeah, so I agree with you. So let's talk a little bit about some of the features that stood out. I mean, we could be here for hours. I only pulled out some notable ones that are of interest here. The first thing is you'll notice right away when you get a phone call. Oh boy, the buttons. We mentioned this during the beta cycle when everybody was in uproar when the end button got moved to the right, and no, you can't do that. So now it includes audio, FaceTime, mute, and adding somebody, the end, and the keypad. And you know what? I'm not complaining much about it. I think this is actually more convenient because it was always a pain to have to switch between a keypad and back to the phone when you could just tap the button now and get to it. Same thing if you wanted to tap into FaceTime. You know, I think people will get used to this. I've done a few phone calls already, and it's pretty solid. Chuck, have you tried this yet? Are you gonna get on the phone calls?
Yeah, in fact, I'm one of those strange people who uses my phone as a phone as opposed to anything else. I love the idea that they've moved the buttons to the bottom. It took me about 2 calls to get adjusted to that, and then it's like, this is great because now this is pretty close to one-handed operation if I want it to be. Whereas before there was no hope for it. I think the add button being changed from merge makes a lot of sense because merge sounded like you already had to have 2 calls established and then try to figure out. So this is much more obvious. It's a subtle thing, but you know, for folks who maybe are new to this or haven't used that feature before, I think they're much more likely to now. But for all the controversy over, they're moving the buttons and everything. Yeah, okay, fine. But there was a good reason for it, and yeah, I'm fine with it.
Yep, sounds like everybody's in agreement that they have no issues with this new layout. I agree too. It like anything, change is inevitable. You got to get used to it, and I think Apple did a good job of making it very easy. Chuck just talked about the live transcripts of voicemail. No, don't be. But I wanted to say it again. I did a little demo. I just did it because I have 2 iPhones I could play with. So, so I started talking into the one, and it's like, wow, this is really cool. Being able to see that. I mean, it's going back to the old days of us having answering machines and screening the calls that way on tape, and then you can just pick the phone up to talk to them. Well, here it's all electronic, and being able to you just do the swipe of answering the call, and then you answer it if you want to. And you know, I watched a number of this influencers. One of them is talking to their mom, and the mom says, "Oh, I was leaving a message. I didn't know you could answer this." And it's, "Oh, you were screening my calls, huh?" So, yeah, had to.
Yes.
So I think this is something that was long overdue. I mean, this has been around for a while on Android, I hate to say, but it's true. I mean, Apple had really delayed this for a long time. But, you know, again, like we always say, I think Apple wanted to get it right and make sure that it worked flawlessly. So far, you know, I think we'll see that if anything is of a failure. Do you want something to add there, Jill?
Yeah, I was gonna say I just got a job in Sacramento, and so people call me from Sacramento all the time, and I just got this number that I didn't recognize, and I answered it in fear that it was one of my coworkers, and it turned out to be some dude who wanted to ask me if I wanted to play golf. And I thought then if I had the screening feature, I could have just ignored it. So I'm excited about this.
Yeah,
1990s answering machine.
Same thing. Yeah, we get the spam callers that you're getting, and you just ignore it, and some leave messages, some don't. Of course, it's usually recorded. Yeah. So, but did you have another thought?
But yeah, Joe, if he calls back, send him my way. I'd love to play.
Yeah, I was going to say. There you go.
You have to go to Sacramento to play golf with him, though.
Yeah,
that's a small price to pay.
Okay.
Yeah. Any thoughts on this, Ben?
I mean, it's. Yeah, I mean, it kind of takes me back to the early 2000s or the 90s, but Yeah, I'm one of those people that does not answer their phone. I want to know exactly why you're calling before I talk to you. So if this is something urgent, this feature saves me a call back.
Yeah, no, I agree. Oh, for sure. So good stuff. Good stuff. Messages. There was a lot of good improvements in messages. I just kind of noted one here that this week. And again, we'll be the next number of episodes. We'll be hitting I'll be more and more tips on what's going on, what happened, and what we got as improvements. But the Messages app, I really love this. This is all the apps in one place. I mean, in iOS 16, you always do. You tapped in to start the message, and then you had all those buttons down there, and like you got to scrolling back and forth. Well, now there's a plus button right next to it, and you just tap that plus button, and then all the apps are available right there. It starts with the camera, and it goes from there when it comes to the stickers and photos, and if you're doing Apple Cache, any audio, locations, that kind of stuff. So I've really found this to be of a good use. Chuck, have you tried this? What do you think on this one?
I have not tried this. This didn't. Unfortunately, during a work day, it's kind of difficult to play with things. So I was interacting with some of the new features sort of as they were thrown at me.
Sure.
But that's kind of the thing I liked about it, because there was nothing that, and I have not kept up necessarily with all the beta rumors and everything. So it was really nice to find these little new features and say, I don't have to be trained or look up how to use this. It's right here in front of me. I know there are other things I'm going to have to go dig into, but yeah, it's these little incremental changes that I think I love about this particular version of the iOS, at least the ones I've run into, and I know there are more for me to play with.
Yeah, absolutely. Ben, sounds like you've taken advantage of this quite extensively.
Oh yes. In iOS 16 and earlier, to the point where they introduced those iMessages apps, the interface was kind of a dumpster fire. This is very easy to use, very well thought out, and especially when you're sending, say, photos to your friends or family, or here in the example, Apple Cache, it goes from cluttered to dead simple.
Yeah, the list is just beautiful. It's a nice, well-designed list that just pops up on the left side of the screen, and you just swipe up to scroll through. And there's a number of apps. If the app supports it, it'll be included. But one tip I will add is now you have the ability to actually customize this even further, and it's really easy. The way you do that is you go into settings under messages, and then you select the iMessages apps. And once you go in there, it's very similar to a lot of other location and privacy, where you can turn a lot of those off. The lists are very similarly designed. You can go through here. It says included with an app, and you can go start turning off all these apps you would probably never use. As far as these apps go, because there's a number in here I would never use. I mean, it's even got restaurants and ESPN. I mean, I might post that once in a while. Who knows? eBay's even here. Dropbox. So if you find that you use these apps, that's great. But then if you don't, turn them off, because then the list gets much more truncated, and then you don't have to scroll through all of them all the time. I mean, as you see it, I'll have a picture in the show notes here. You'll see that the standard ones that are used a lot: camera, photos, the stickers, Apple Cache, audio, location. You just tap the more button, and then you get to these. So I'm really pleased to see that they did a nice job of customizing this very easily. So, have you tried this, Jill? Have you done this?
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I told you I was making stickers left and right. So I'm enjoying that. I'm enjoying sending them on messages, the pictures, and having everything right there. It is a huge UI fix to something that was just kind of messy before, and I'm excited.
Oh yeah, absolutely. The other thing that I found to be interesting, and they were spouting it off, was standby mode or standby. It's a nice new full screen experience. Basically, what you can do is you turn your phone on its side, which would be to landscape mode, and I tried it out for the first time this week because I have it at bedside, but I do have a wireless charging stand. It's used to being on in the portrait mode, so I had to the side and kind of move it around to make sure it was charging. But once it does, it comes up and it gives you these beautiful screens, including the most common one is the with the clock on one side and the calendar on the other side, a full month calendar. So you can swipe through all those and pick whatever you'd like. You can have one that's just a big giant clock. And it'll have photos if you want the photos to flip through. It'll have music if you want to have music sitting there, and it's right there on that screen. The nice thing too is that at night it adjusts to the lighting. So once you do it, it's very useful in this case. I think this is a kind of an interesting thing. I don't, Chuck, have you tried this yet?
Yeah, I did, David. And the one thing that I'm not quite clear on, and I admit I was trying to sleep, so I didn't really have a lot of time to play with it. But I found that in the middle of the night it turned off, and
okay,
and then I rolled over, but it was almost like it knew I was looking at it because then it turned back on right before my eyes. So I don't know quite what's going on there. So now I'm a little paranoid about my iPhone watching me sleep. But we may be back to that encrypt text messages. But I do want to play with it. But like you said, the display itself is gorgeous, and the fact that you can tweak it in so many ways is, again, I'm looking forward to just finding the one that's right for me, and finding out if that particular, there's got to be a setting in there somewhere. But then again, maybe that's a battery saving mode thing. I don't know.
Well, it's charging, so there really shouldn't be. It really shouldn't be a concern with that. So,
and I will add too. I don't know if anybody else has tried this or cares, but it is not just a MagSafe feature. It works just fine with my Anker Qi charger.
Any charging.
Yeah, so anything that'll let you put it landscape, it will work with.
Yep. No, I agree. So another great feature that they've added, and something, because there's times, I finally gave up. I used to have an old iHome charger that I would set my phone on, and they had a clock next to it. And of course, this device had the clock that you touch to get it to come up. And there'd be times I touch it, and of course, it's like blinding bright, and you had no real control of it. So once I had enough of that, so I retired it. But this is really going to come in handy for me bedside when it comes to that. So, FaceTime, they've now added an awesome feature in you being able to have the ability to record an audio or video when a call is missed. So, like we used to do before in previous iOS and 16 and earlier, that you couldn't leave a message. You couldn't leave a message. You just said, you can call back later, and that's the end of it. So now it's kind of a fun thing. You can actually leave a video voicemail, I guess we really want to call it that. So you can do audio or video when that call's missed, and they can come back and be able to watch what you had to say, and then you can go back and then they can call you back. I think it's kind of a neat feature. Have any use? I haven't really tried this yet. I don't know if any of you have tried this yet.
I looked at it primarily because I get voicemails left for me that it will say. So I say, "Hey, I'm Jill. Leave a message," and that's my voicemail. And then half the people are like, "Yeah, Sam, are you going to go play golf with me tonight?" And then I'll be like, "Sam, I said Jill." So I thought, this is going to stop all those wrong voicemail messages.
Yep. So definitely a cool thing that's going to be happening. Jill, you've been talking a lot about custom stickers. Why don't you tell a little bit more of what your experience has been with custom stickers and what you've been doing with them?
Well, what's nice about it is if it's a live photo, you can take it out and it becomes an animated sticker. So I have my bird. My friend and I were hiking, and I photobombed her, so I was waving behind her, and so I turned that into a sticker. And in every photo where she's pointing at me and telling me, not to take my picture, I took that out and made a sticker. So I've been doing all sorts of fun things with it. I've enjoyed it, and I'll be interested to get my family. Yeah, I wasn't much for stickers, but now that I can personalize them to my own photos, it's great.
I think I'm going to show my family how to use it, because my sister-in-laws and my wife, they're going to have a blast with this once they start realizing what it does and be sending stickers left and right. It's going to be fun. Did you try it all, Ben?
I haven't. I don't have. Well, I didn't have anybody else who was on iOS 17 to use it.
Well,
and beyond that,
we've got us.
I think it works on everybody because my friend wasn't on 17 and it worked.
Oh, well, that's right.
Yeah. I'm not that big of a sticker guy, honestly.
Yeah, okay. All right. And so check it out. I think it's going to be neat. Again, there's tons more features, and we're going to cover this over the next couple episodes here. But one of the things I wanted to notate is the fact that there are some features that were not launched. We've talked about them before, but I wanted to mention them again. So it's going to be, they're probably going to be released in the next couple months. The first one is the Journal app. This is going to be able to give you the ability to reflect on your day and your memories, complete text, photos, auto recordings, all that stuff. It's going to be interesting to see where that goes. With that, it wasn't even available in beta, so I don't know. And you guys were beta testing, didn't have the option to be able to try it. So it's probably going to come out the next versions, like probably, I don't know about 17.1 or 17.2 beta, maybe. We'll see. The other one is
I was going to say, I was excited about that. I have some auto journal where it shows where I was at. And I thought if I could have something like that, where it brings in my photos, my locations, maybe everything that Apple really knows about me, but doesn't sell, I would love some sort of a journal if it ends up being a very automatic journal. And then I just type a few words of my own in, I ate at this restaurant, I went hiking in this place, and here's a picture, and the temperature was 30 degrees. Great.
Yeah. So, one feature that I was going to touch, I just realized I missed it. And I'll kind of tie this into what's going to be coming later this year, is the airdropping of contacts and photos by bumping phones. I think that is so cool. I tried it the other day with the two phones I have, and you put each phone next to each other, top to top, and all of a sudden it's just little blubble, and all of a sudden off the photo that you took and you wanted to send to somebody, automatically goes there. It's the same thing with AirDrop. It prompts you, do you want to accept this photo? And then you tap it and you accept it, and it worked just beautifully. I thought it was a kind of a fun thing. For the most part, it's not. I mean, I haven't tried it extensively. Some influencers were showing that they had some problems here and there, but for the most part, it works. The other thing you can do is you can bump phones, not only photos, but you can do contacts too. So doing your business card, you just tap it, be able to send that to somebody just by going phone to phone. And you hope that as a couple months pass, everybody has iOS 17. If you ever are meeting anybody at a convention or wherever you go to, you'll now be able to do that. So the other thing that they are going to add, as far as something that will be released later that's related to that, is being able to do AirDrop transfers via the internet. What this is going to do is it's going to allow you to send a contact, like an image or a video, to another user via AirDrop, but then the transfer will continue to over an internet connection if you move out of AirDrop range. As long as both of you are signed into your iCloud account, it should be no problem. You actually can send this once you've initiated it. Then you can walk away and it'll get there eventually. So that's going to be interesting to see how well that works. Do you guys have any comments on that?
Not really, but I thought on the first thing with the contacts, I imagined us at MacStock, and when you're suddenly meeting 50 new people and we're all sitting there typing in each other's contacts, this is going to be great. Yeah. So, but yeah, even sending, I do AirDrop things to my friends, and I think this is going to be nice. Yeah.
Anything else you guys have?
Just anxious to see how it works in practice. Once because the fact that our photos especially are getting larger and larger and larger as the cameras get better and better and better, the idea that this feels like it may be a more reliable way to make sure that the photo actually gets there in a reasonably timely fashion. And I know we're all becoming like super impatient. You can't wait a few seconds for a photo transfer. No, sorry, we can't.
Yeah. So be interesting. A couple of things I'll hit real quickly. Here's the iMessage contact key verification. This was Apple did preview this back in December of 2022. It does have a key verification security feature. It's supposed to be launched in 2023. What it is it allows users who face an extraordinary digital threats, such as journalists, human rights activists, and government officials, to further verify that they are messaging only the people that they intend. In the conversations between users who have enabled this feature, users are alerted if it's a state-sponsored attacker or if it's a malicious actor who's ever to succeed in breaching cloud servers and inserting their own device to eavesdrop on the conversation. So this basically another additional layer of security. I don't know if a lot of us would be using this, but I think this is another great thing that Apple does with security. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, this is fantastic for basically celebrities, journalists, anybody who would want to have a malicious actor would want to kind of slide into their DMs.
Yeah. Anybody else have any comments on that?
Just
last thing I'll talk.
Just more security is better.
Oh, it always is. It always is. Last thing I'll hit on here is the next generation of CarPlay. I know I'm not going to be buying a car anytime soon, but I'm kind of excited to see this, at least maybe in a video format. That's probably about the closest I'll come to it. But if you recall back at WWDC, Apple did preview the next generation of CarPlay, which will feature support of multiple displays, widgets, integration with vehicle functions, including the instrument cluster, climate controls, and the radio. Apple did say that the first vehicles that would be supporting this next generation CarPlay would be announced later this year in 2023. They have commitments from automakers including Acura, Audi, Ford, Honda, Jaguar, Land Rover, Mercedes-Benz, Nissan, Porsche, Volvo, and many others. So I'm kind of excited to see where this is going to go with CarPlay. They've done some improvements on CarPlay on its own. I mean, we'll hit on that on another episode here, but the CarPlay continues to evolve.
Yep. I'll be anxious to see. Oh, go ahead, Ben. Sorry.
I'll be happy to find out what that's like in 15 years when I can afford a vehicle with it.
Yeah.
I'm somewhat shopping for cars, and whatever I buy will have CarPlay in it because that is something I really want to have. So I'm excited to see it evolve.
Yeah.
And I'm anxious to see, though, if the third-party market figures out some way to add a second display to existing CarPlay systems, as far as placement in the vehicle and what the capabilities are. I mean, I can envision a box of some kind sitting between your phone and then the second screen, and then also plugging into the existing CarPlay to use your existing car's screen. And it would be clunky, but depending on just what can be projected on that second screen, I can see it being very desirable. And if someone isn't out there developing it, I'd be shocked.
Yeah. I mean, I'd love to see some kind of aftermarket digital dash.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, they're already coming out with those little small displays that they're for CarPlay. You just plug it into your radio's USB just to get the sound part of it connected. So, I mean, they want to retrofit these older cars, and they're coming up with some interesting ways of doing it. So, I'm going to hit a few tips here. There's some tips here that some of us are probably not going to know about yet, and I thought it'd be kind of fun to run through a few of these. Did you know that with two-factor authentication messages, we always get those all the time when they send you a 2FA code to put in to authenticate that you're accessing, whether it's your bank or if it's a website that requires that. Those messages start piling up in your messages, and they start getting in the way, and you have to manually delete them all. Well, now what they've done is they've added this new feature where it'll actually automatically delete them once you've used them. So what you do is you go into settings under passwords, and if you go under password options, there's a selection there. It's turn on cleanup automatically under the verification codes. So now the verification codes comes up, you tap them in, and then within a matter of minutes, it's gone. They erase them for you. So they've automated that process, which is great. Other thing I thought was really cool is the fact in the Find My app now, you now can share an AirTag with somebody. So if you open up the AirTag in Find My, you look up your list of all the AirTags that you have connected to your Find My app, you can choose share this item, and then you can pick up your friends or whoever you want to share the item with temporarily, and now that AirTag, whatever it is that's tracking to keep the so you know where to find it. And a friend or a family member can now track it, which is great. And they've really opened that up. So if they do that now, especially if you have husband and wife have different AirTags that aren't connected to their accounts, you don't get that rogue air tag anymore. So now you know that, like, I'll give you my car keys, and if that AirTag isn't connected to your account, then they won't say that you have an AirTag that's not yours. Other feature here I thought was kind of interesting. With music and Apple Music, they have what's called crossfade. So when you're listening to one song and it's going to crossfade into the next song. Well, you have control of this now. If you go into Apple Music settings, which is under Settings, Music, and then under Crossfade, there's a bar across that allows you to be able to toggle between I think 2 seconds all the way up to 7 or 8 seconds. So giving you a little more granular control of the way where music crossfades between the two tracks, which I think is kind of fun that you're able to do that. So another good tip I thought was kind of cool. Then the last one was Hallelujah. They have Ping My Watch. So in Control Center, you now can go into Control Center and be able to actually add Ping My Watch. I tried it. My watch pinged. It was great. All those times I set my watch down somewhere and I can't find it. And now not only do you have the option to ping your iPhone with the Apple Watch, now you can reverse it. Now the iPhone can ping your watch and be able to find it. So we got some cool things. Tons more. I mean, my gosh, there's so many other new tips that everybody's finding out there, and I thought these kind of stood out. And I hope you guys try these and those listening try these because they're really going to be really helpful and beneficial to you. Anything else you guys want to add on these tips?
That last one, I've used it a lot.
So you've tried. I only tried it when it was on my wrist, so to tell it, but I didn't try it yet. But it works fine because I'm assuming it does because as long as it's in the vicinity, it should be able to ping it, right?
Yeah, I have cats, so they tend to knock this off the nightstand.
Yeah. Oh yeah, then it gets behind the nightstand and you can't find it. And
I was going to say
it a few dozen times.
Yeah, I was going to say this is an interesting feature to me that I don't think I will ever use because I don't have Ben's animal situation. And that sounds like a completely legitimate use. But I always set my phone down somewhere and can't find it. Right. But my watch comes off the charger, goes on my wrist, stays there until it goes back on the charger. I don't think there've been 4 times that I sit my watch down somewhere and then can't find it in the years I've had all the years I've had an Apple Watch. So this is one of those, for me, this is one of those features like, okay, that's nice, but I don't get it. So,
yeah. Well, there's many times I've put my watch down, like I was getting dressed. It's on a nightstand or on a bed, or got buried in blankets, or like in Ben's case, his cat knocked it over and probably was playing with it too.
Almost daily.
I lost it in a tent once. Somehow
there you
it
go
fell off the charger, and I was wondering where it was.
And you were like, "Oh my God, how am I going to find it?" Well, now we've got that. Yeah. So there's some good examples for you, Chuck. I know you're in a tent all the time, so you want to in case you drop it.
I've been never mind, leave it alone.
I'm really enjoying iOS 17 and Sonoma. These upgrades this year. Upgrade feels like it's bringing me closer to people, being able to share things with people more, and I think that's what I said about Apple. Is Apple tries to get out of your way and just let you do the things you want to do, and I think this upgrade gives you a ton of things to try that with.
Yeah, it's not.
Go ahead.
It's not anything really big and flashy this year. It's just a bunch of little things that make sense.
Nice. Yeah.
And a number of these I just went over, I think made sense. There's some really good additions to this. So
the stability factor too. I mean, that's we've talked about this, and I know this is in touch with iOS, but I'm anxious to see what happens with Sonoma, because I think that this may be another one of those, hopefully one of those years where, there are a couple of nice new little features that are iterative and they're nice, but I really am looking for the stability. And so maybe this is the year that we'll get that on all the devices.
Spoiler alert, it's amazing, but never upgrade your primary machine to it.
Yeah.
Yes. Anyway, but it's amazing and it is stable and it brings a lot of things like that too. So I'm excited.
No, we'll hit on Sonoma. I mean, we've talked. Sometimes I have an In Touch with Mac segment here, but we can touch on that real quick. Well, I found interesting one of the apps that we use all the time, Bartender. That Bartender 5 just came out. They're not offering a version other than for Sonoma, version 5. So you have to stay on version 4 if you're going to stay on Ventura, which is only one version back, which I found to be interesting that they opted not to do that. But they also opted not to do Electron development because they're developing for both Windows and Mac. So that's going to be interesting to see if you're going to get developers like that decide to just develop only for Sonoma. I mean, I've been playing with it a little bit. I have it on a spare machine, so I probably hadn't played with it as much as I should. But yeah, I agree with you, Chuck, that that this is. I think Sonoma is going to have some things that's really going to improve it. I mean, Joel, you've been using it for all this time too. I'm sure you've seen some good things with it, and
Ben too. But yeah, absolutely, I found it to be really stable. Really fixed some things that were annoying me, and I'm really impressed with it. And I think the difference for me is not only did it bring a lot of things to people, the end users, but you can suddenly see app developers jumping on features to get their stuff into it. It made them excited to upgrade their apps to something new too. Yeah. And I think that's great.
What's most important to me is the Rogue Amoeba apps they're preliminarily supporting Sonoma. So I think we'll feel a little safer. I want the complete approval. I want them to be completely supported before I'll be ready to upgrade my production machines for podcasting. So, but it looks like there hasn't been anything major complaints about it. It's been pretty, like you said, you guys are saying it's very stable, and we'll be testing it soon for work. I'll be testing it soon for work, so we'll have to start trying it out, being the guinea pig on my production machine once it gets released, because we have to make sure it's ready before we release it out in the wild. So, all right. Well, with that, let's go ahead and wrap up for this week. That was what a great discussion here. And like I said, we'll be talking a lot more about iOS 17 next week. Chuck's going to be back. We got him here this week. We'll have him back next week as well. I want to get first impressions of his new iPhone 15 Pro Max, as well as my iPhone 15 Pro Max, as well as the Apple Watch Series 9. So stay tuned for that next week's episode here. But for now, let's go ahead and wrap it up. That's a wrap for this week. Please send your comments, questions, and suggestions to our email address, which is feedback@intouchwithios.com. You can follow us on Mastadon, which is at intouchwithios. And you also can support the show by buying me a coffee at intouchwithios.com/coffee. We would really appreciate it. You also become a patron of the show by going to patreon.com/intouchwithios. We have 2 tiers available to support the show. We would really appreciate it. Make sure you like, share, and subscribe when we are streaming on Thursday nights, usually 8 p.m. Eastern Time, 5 p.m. Pacific on our YouTube channel. This is youtube.com/intouchwithios. We thank a number of the folks in the chat this week. I forgot to mention Witherbucket, as well as Cletus is in the chat today. Thank you so much for joining us and giving us your interesting inputs. We really appreciate it. You also can go to our Flipboard magazine, which is our In Touch with iOS Flipboard, which is a place where we post a lot of the stories that we talk about each week. That link is in the show notes. You can go and actually subscribe to the show in your favorite podcatcher, which includes Pocket Casts, Overcast, Apple Podcasts, and many others. But better yet, just go to our website, intouchwithios.com, where all the links, all the ways to listen to us are there. And I am Dave Ginsburg, and you can find me on Mastodon at DaveG65 at mastodon.cloud. And Chuck Joyner, thank you so much for jumping in and joining us at the last minute. We appreciate it. Where can people find you?
Hey, David, I'm glad to do it. Thank you so much for having me, as always. MacVoices.com is where you can find us. We do all kind of interesting things over there, talk to all kind of interesting people. We do Mac Voices live Tuesday nights, 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific, whatever time that is, wherever you are, at youtube.com/MacVoicesTV. Please join us for that because it's always a blast to have, just like here, have people in the chats throwing in comments and questions and disputing our judgment, and that's always good. And on all the socials, you can find me as @ChuckJoyner. And on the major socials, you can also find me as @MacVoices. But sometimes it's getting to be a challenge to try to maintain two different identities.
Yes, it's tough. I do it too. Thank you, Chuck. Appreciate it. And Jill McKinley, thank you for being here. What a blast to have you again. And we had a really great time. Thanks for being here. Where can people find you?
Well, thanks so much for having me. It's been great to talk about tech. I have other podcasts that aren't tech, and so it's fun to talk about this topic with people. You can find me at Jill@startwithsmallsteps.com, and that's my podcast.
Great. And you did a couple articles for Allison Sheridan, right?
Yep.
From Zillcast. And what was the last one you did? I remember seeing it.
I did one on the microphones that I use, the Shure MV7, and then I did another one about my nature recordings last week about the Shure MV88 Plus.
Nice. Go check those out. And last but certainly not least, Ben Roethig, so glad you're here as well. Where can people find you?
Well, Dave, you can find me at Ben Roethig on the complete, on the far too many social networks. You can find me at Roethig.tech for my writings. I have some brand new stuff out, post-Apple announcements. On Tuesday nights, you can find me on our special guest, Mr. Chuck Joyner's show, Mac Voices. And then Thursday and Fridays, in addition to here, you can find me on the British Tech Network for the Big and Mac shows.
All right. Thank you so much. And thank you for listening. We really appreciate it because we enjoyed doing the show. I hope you enjoyed it as well. And until next time, we'll talk again.